Story 1. Find out where all my local billionaire bunkers are so I can close up the entrances with cement. I figure if I hit enough of them, I'll probably get the people responsible for the war. Story 2. I'm gonna cover myself in 2 metric tons of lead, which I have at home. In my lead bunker, I will have food, heat, and solar panels hooked up. And books. There I will stay for 100,000 years and then emerge as a survivor of the apocalypse. I am sarcastic. My plan is to get cancer and die. Story 3. If I am in a fallout zone, stay indoors for 5 to 7 days after the radiation cloud passes through my area before going anywhere. I would tear out all my decorative houseplants and compost them under pressure in my Instant Pot, or just in an old airtight cooler if there is no electricity, and plant as many vegetable seeds as possible in the planter pots that I have on hand. During any quarantine periods, survive on rice and beans from my pantry, questionably old frozen meat from my freezer, and distilled water that I keep around for my houseplants. I'd probably also pick up my mom and bring her to my home, as I am better set up for survival than she is, and if she runs out of her psychiatric medications, she needs adult supervision. I would be spending as much time as possible encouraging my loved ones not to sign up for the war effort, and making the case for ending war by rising above the need to be warlike. After 4 to 5 years, once the war starts winding down and mass casualties have been recorded, start looking at the housing market. This is, after all, the only scenario in which I will ever be able to buy a house. Story 4. We had nuclear bomb drills in school. It was during the Cold War. We were taught to go into the hall and line up, face against the wall. Squat down as far as we could, put our head between our knees, and kiss our behind goodbye. Story 5. I live in Australia. I guess I hope on the beach wasn't completely scientifically accurate. It honestly annoys me that some of the world's most trigger-happy nations are the ones with the power to kill us all and poison the earth to the point where even roaches might have a rough time in the aftermath. Story 6. Odds of survival are so slim in the aftermath that I honestly don't see a purpose to plan much. I have firearms and some food and water, which buys me time to figure out if it's going to be worth continuing or not. In the long run, the interconnectivity of the global economic system is going to eventually mean shortages of food, clean water, and just general basic needs and medications. Most of us will die from that, not the fires of nuclear Armageddon. The civil defense plans during the Cold War mostly focused on surviving the initial engagement. They left out being kicked back to pre-World War I subsistence farming afterward. Story 7. Step 1. Figure out what the wind direction is. If you can figure out the spots that got hit and the wind direction, you can potentially avoid the windswept radiation afterwards, perhaps the most lethal part of the mess, outside of the blast radius itself. If you are downwind of nuclear strikes, get out because that is deadly lethal even hundreds of miles away. Wind direction is amazingly important. Story 8. If an all-out nuclear war starts and China, the United States, and Russia are all trying to attack each other, plus all the other participants such as the Koreas and multiple Middle Eastern countries, what do you mean by plan? Everyone will be dead. There will be no life left to have a plan about. Who doesn't understand this? Never mind, a lot of people don't get this. Story 9. I'm more concerned about electromagnetic pulses from nuclear weapons. I live in Appalachia and we'd survive, but it would be hard. We live in a safe zone apparently, but we garden and buy extra supplies just like we did before COVID-19 hit. My husband grew up a farmer and hunter, so I think we'd be okay, if not great. Story 10. We either have nothing to worry about or we will have nothing to worry about. It's an issue literally so out of your league that there is nothing you can do about it. Best to live a good life without regrets, because there is no reasonable way you could anticipate the damage a nuclear bomb will do to your world. If you want some first-hand real-life examples, read John Hersey's Hiroshima. He was the child of English diplomats, was born in China, went to university in England, then ended up as a guest of the emperor in Japan during World War II. He was very near the Hiroshima blast and did his best to record the stories of 6 survivors, interviewing and following them just days after the blast. It's non-political and doesn't idle on embellishing facts for more emotional punch. It doesn't have to. Personally, I think it may be one of the most important pieces of literature in modern history. It's too easy to lose sight of what a nuclear bomb can do when you're looking into coverage of a war nearly 100 years in the past. Everything ends up as a retelling of field facts based on 3 generations of propaganda. These are first-hand accounts of what actually happened, as told and collected by a Westerner that could translate not just their words, but the societal implications a nuclear bomb creates for a Western audience. Story 11. Fill up my bathtub with fresh water, plug up all the vents in my house, and wait for the fallout to settle down enough to migrate to the south of the equator. Story 12. Blow them up before they land, or hack them to move them to space, or use magical powers to transform them into butterflies and ask Yeshua to shoot the aftermath with a rainbow. Story 13. Where I am at now, I probably will not be vaporized immediately, which is sad. I hope that there is enough fallout and proximity that I will die relatively quickly though. I do not know. I definitely would not try to survive. Story 14. I am in a difficult situation here. I live north of a major military base and south of a major airport. We also have major pharmaceutical manufacturing nearby and technology companies. We are prime targets for nuclear strikes, so there's nothing that can be done. If we get 30 minutes lead time, hopefully my family and I are home. I would hate for my kids to be stuck and scared in school, or for me to be away from them for work. If we are to gather, then I'm not saying anything. I would rather go in peace than be scared and crying. Story 15. I live about 1.5 miles from the Pentagon, so my plan is to go out to my balcony and enjoy my only chance to see a nuclear explosion live and in person. Story 16. I think people in this thread need to be educated on the size and fallout range of nuclear weapons. There's a reason the United States and Russia each have 8,000 of them. The explosions aren't as big as you are likely thinking. They need that many to truly destroy an enemy with landmasses the size of the United States, China, Russia, and so on. Story 17. It sounds like you have not watched Threads, 1984, and I highly encourage you to do so. A full nuclear exchange is not a future I want any part in. Even if humans survive, I am not sure humanity will. Story 18. Pour tons of pet food on the floor and open up the doors, in case my pets outlive me and the family, so they won't be trapped inside and starving. And yes, this really is my plan that I have actually put thought into. Story 19. I think you would have about half an hour or so to make arrangements. I think that is what they say about intercontinental travel. I think also you are supposed to stay protected with concrete or water or whatever to blunt the radiation for 3 days. Right now would be the time to buy bags of rice or freeze-dried food to make it through the first month as you get your bearings. A shotgun would be good too. Maybe a sidearm with it. Story 20. I hope to be under the bomb. But I think my city might just be unimportant enough for me to survive the bomb that would destroy the local infrastructure. My emergency plan is the same in pretty much all scenarios. I have enough food and water to last a month inside my apartment. I'll try to wait for the first wave of chaos to subside and the fallout to decrease. After that, I'll keep an eye on the radio. I'll scavenge and filter water. My immediate area should be relatively okay, but things are going to go downhill fast. I am good in survival situations and such, but a global nuclear war that goes all out is going to mess everything up. So it's either a hope I get bombed, B, hope I survive the initial bombing and then go on an absolute end-of-the-world spree for the time it takes for nuclear winter and radiation sickness to take me. Story 21. I think I'm too old to try to survive in an apocalyptic world. I hope I could say goodbye to my loved ones, but I also hope I get blown up pretty quickly. Story 22. Honestly, grab that bottle of fine bourbon I've been saving for a special occasion. Sit down on the porch and watch the sunrise one final time. Just kidding, I'll dive into a radioactive lake. No way I'm dealing with surviving after the apocalypse. Story 23. Order my butler to get the helicopter ready so we can ride it out to the secret lair I've created inside a cave in Costa Rica. But seriously, how can anyone have a plan? We all live in houses made of wood. Story 24. Assuming I survive the first week, gather a few survivors together, collect all the construction equipment, and then find each and every billionaire survival bunker, seal the doors, and fill the air vents with concrete. Story 25. Take a large bottle of liquor, a giant blunt, and sit on the tallest hill overlooking the destruction with my zero-gravity chair. Then just wait. I'll pour one out for Earth, for we do not deserve her. Story 26. We cockroach people will divide and conquer. Ration supplies, find good weapons, and secure the perimeter. Story 27. Find out where the closest bomb is going to hit, and head in that direction with all due haste if I can make it before it goes off. Because I sure as hell do not want to live in the aftermath. Story 28. I'd stand in the one spot where a frozen pizza would be cooked perfectly and evenly. Just before my charred remains hit the ground, I'd scream, "It's a pizza!" in Borat's voice and deliver a chef's kiss like a doctor. Story 29. If there's any truth to where the wind blows, you don't survive nuclear war. As my organs shut down from the radiation, I plan to spend it in prayer, making peace with God. Story 30. It's much less likely to be nuclear war. More likely, it will be the rise of fascism on a global scale. Reread Brave New World. Things are more likely to be based on division, keeping the populations as ignorant and as far from education as possible, mass starvation and labor camps, and making an example of dissenters. Weapon of choice. Biological warfare for general populations, chemical warfare for protests. Story 31. I'm in the southern hemisphere now, so we'll be spared most of the immediate effects, but if it comes, I'll obviously need to sort out what that means for my job and my livelihood here, and see what pathways exist for friends and family to come over and stay with us. Even if not directly targeted, it's going to be a challenging time. Story 32. To die most likely. I live in Canada, so as a non-nuclear power, we are less likely to get attacked with nuclear weapons. But if we do become a target, I am less than a mile from a major airbase. In a surprise attack, we would all die in an instant, too fast to even notice. If the attack is declared or picked up by the distant early warning line and American satellites, by the time the alert reached us, we would only have 20 to 30 minutes to react. That's not enough time for my household to make it to safety. We do have a cold room off the basement we might take refuge in, but getting my wheelchair-bound son downstairs into it would be very difficult. And when the neighborhood blows away, we could easily be trapped under the rubble. Story 33. I live near a metropolitan area that will probably be a target. I guess it depends on how accurate the bombs are. I've played with an online blast radius simulator, and odds are I'd be fine with most bombs as long as they hit the city and don't miss. Then I'd pack up my important stuff, try to get gas while there's still power, and head out in my Jeep to get wherever I can. Nothing we consider important is going to matter after the blast. There's not a lot I can do about it if it happens, but there's definitely no point in sticking around where I am. Story 34. I might be safe at first. From a global perspective, I'm not anywhere important. However, because of that, I do know we have some silos in the general area. It really depends on how it works. Is this a situation where every country fires everything they have everywhere? If so, it probably doesn't matter what my plan is because I'll be dead. Is this a situation where only major population centers and strategic locations get bombed? Then I imagine I would die in the riots, the disease, the radiation, whatever. Man, what type of plan do you think I would have? Story 35. I haven't updated my plans since the early 1980s in elementary school. First, I'm going to need to find a vintage school desk and then go on a huge diet so I can fit under it. Story 36. If I survive, enjoy the sense of discovery that our currently extremely well-explored and boring planet will provide due to all the inevitable permanent changes to the landscape, the climate, and the behavior of all of the remaining people. Story 37. While there is still power, I'll quickly drill a hole in my outer wall at high altitude, where I will mount a hook to bind a rope. Once that is done, I'll get my marijuana and take a nice walk through my village into the forest. My village is in a valley, quite a distance from any larger towns. The closest town to be targeted by a nuclear strike should be about 18 kilometers away, as the headquarters for the Army Command is situated there. So when the nuclear weapons are launched, there is a high chance not even the pressure wave will cause any damage, and I will only feel slight shaking and see the cloud in the sky. I imagine seeing nuclear clouds live while high could be pretty cool. I take a knife with me in case of unfortunate situations. Once I am back, the bombs should have already dropped. I'll check if I have a network or power and try to find information about the extent of the damage. If for any unforeseen reason my house is destroyed, I'll use the knife to end it. If the extent of the damage is too extreme and I am expected to suffer radiation poisoning or worse, I'll use the rope. If the damage isn't too bad, I'll just live my life as usual and handle the economic impact from the likely higher taxes due to the nuclear war. Story 38. I live in the middle of a triangle between a Navy base, an Air Force base, and an Army base. I plan to try to get to my kids to see them one last time, or die of radiation poisoning on the way to them. Story 39. Watch it unfold from the comfort of my irrelevant to the world stage, third world country. I know the consequences eventually will reach us here, but still. Story 40. Assuming I make it through the first impact, I will go to my farm or hunting camp and do what I do every other day, farm. I will also invite my friends to come, but with the understanding that they have to work and contribute their share.